All right. Good evening and welcome to another edition of Grown Folks Business on a Thursday evening. I'm so glad to be here and share the space and time with some outstanding people. Greg and Julia, welcome back. It's been far too long. Mary, it's been a while. Glad to see you. Lisa, glad you could make it as always. Shalita, if you get the camera worked out, regardless, good that you're in the space. Um, this is a kind of a record set night for me because I know we've had a pretty good turnout in terms of women before. So I'll say that we probably have matched this, but this is just like another good showing. So I appreciate the presence of women in the space to this degree. And I think the topic is one that I can actually connect to some wonderful women that I've known in my life who were very near, dear, and important. One being my grandmother, and the other being Portia Paris. In terms of the topic that we have, and I'll just start with a quick story um, that kind of goes into tonight's conversation piece. The topic is where are you firm and where are you flexible? Should we all stay learning throughout the course of our lives? I've probably said it in this space before. Uh, my grandmother was someone who told me she never stopped learning. So I think that already answers that question for me in this space. I think it's critically important that we don't age out of uh, picking up new things and, sometimes reconfiguring our minds about things that we thought were fixed. Um, Portia comes in this because years and years ago we were facilitating something that had to do with uh, the youth at the Y, and it was a long day, and there's just a lot going on. I think we had like three or four different rooms going with different things, and I was reminded of Bruce Lee when he was talking about the need to be kind of malleable, and he said, "Be like water, be like water." Uh, Water can conform to this glass, but water is powerful. It can split a rock. And I said at the portion, we had a little laugh about it, but every contentious moment or something that took place at any point during our interactions on down the road, or me airing agreements to her, she would throw it back at me. Be like water, be like water. So, um, yeah, I try to embrace not always being firm, trying to be flexible. But enough about me. Tonight, I'm here to hear from you guys as always and answer those questions that are the topic and some others that I came up with. And I think I'll have a really good time in listening and enjoying what you guys have to say. Shalita, thanks for joining. I know you said you couldn't get your camera on today or participate, I guess, but glad you could be here. I'm looking at your message. Um, so, without further ado, I will jump into this conversation with the topics being the prompts of the first questions. Where are you firm and where are you flexible? I hope that you guys kind of had given this some thought throughout the day, because I do think we all kind of adhere to certain ideas about how things are. This is just how it is. This is how I like it. I know this about myself. I know this about this thing. And that's that. I'm firm on that. So where are you firm and where are you flexible? Where are you like, okay, I have to be ready to move this way or that way or be more relaxed because I'm going into an environment that doesn't allow me to be stringent or firm in my mentality. I have to make sure I'm flexible at this point in time. So um, I'll start with you, Lisa. Kick us off. Uh, where are you firm and where are you flexible?
You okay? Great. I love the topic as usual. Felton, you're a thought provoking fella. I don't really know where I'm firm at because I'm so open that I don't. I try to stay humble enough to know that I don't know everything, but I try to know a little about a lot of things. So anything I come into contact with, I try to learn as much as I can to not overload myself, but have some contextual knowledge of most things. I'm going to have to think about where I'm firm at. Other than the only thing I can think of off the top is I'm firm with integrity. Um, and everything else I'm pretty flexible. I'm open to learning new things, and I like exposing that vulnerability to people, because a lot of times people will take for granted that you're a subject matter expert just because you happen to be an expert on one particular aspect of something. So I find myself, especially sharing my vulnerabilities with other people who may feel more intimidated by a lot of spaces, and saying, no, 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 trust me, I don't know everything. But when you come authentically saying you don't know everything, but you're open to learning things, then I think that opens so many more doors. But I am firm on integrity. So I try to do the same thing whether people are watching or not watching.
I would definitely say that you are firm, and this falls under the umbrella of integrity in some way. You're firm in testifying or testimonial sense. You're firm in transparency in terms of making sure that the whole you is understood, is present and understood in whatever space you occupy. So that's the firmness. Now, where are you flexible? You didn't get to that part. Where are you flexible?
I'm flexible on nearly everything. So I encountered some fellows at the golf course today, and they were older gentlemen, and they were saying, so they, I have a first charity golf event on Saturday, and one of the guys said, "Well, how much is it?" And I said, "Well, it's $65 for a person and 200 for a team." So he said, "No, no, no, that's not right. Why are you going to punish me because I'm only one person?" And I said, well, to my understanding, I'm not looking at it as punishing a person. I'm looking at it as rewarding an entity that takes some work off of me. So if I don't have to find three other people for this team, then you get rewarded if you come with your foursome. But he saw it differently. And so I listened to him and his perspective. And then I ended up finding out he was 86 years old. Right. And y'all know I don't play golf. I learned a little tiny bit and then I don't play. So I was open to saying, okay, so what do you think? How should I do this? Because I don't want to take on all this work and not. So I had a whole hour-long conversation with this fellow, and I've been working on this golf tournament for like four months. But I think I'm just flexible and open to trying to understand other people's perspectives. So I'm still not swayed. Okay. So I still believe in rewarding someone that's going to take some work off of my plate. But I could understand his perspective, as especially an 86-year-old man. His friend circle is much smaller. So he may have a greater challenge with getting a foursome together. But I still reward the hustle.
Oh man, I love it. I know you know. I probably might know that guy. You spend a lot of time at Gillespie, but yeah, that's a good way to apply this practically. I think that for you to be up against it is a couple days away, and hey, you're still open and willing to listen to what makes sense, not just for your benefit or gain, but for someone who, like you said, probably might be challenged to get a foursome, but desires to play and in a way contribute to your venture. So that's awesome that you give that consideration. Mary, been a while since you've been in the squares, but glad to have you. Where are you firm and where are you flexible? You gotta police your mic here. You gotta turn your mic on.
Sorry. Um, it's kind of a sliding scale, I would say. It depends on the circumstances, depends on who I'm dealing with. It depends on what it's about. Um, Depends on if the person is coming across with integrity and honesty and sincerity, or if I'm getting any bad vibes. So I guess I really read people. I read body language, and I don't just listen to the words people are saying, look at their whole body language. but I'm a nurse, and I'm retired now, but I did psychiatric nursing for quite a few years. Basically, the last third of my career was psychiatric nursing, and I taught crisis prevention intervention, which is a specialized training for dealing with people who are escalating or getting about to escalate. So, one of the big things is that you pay attention to all of this. You have to listen with your empathic side, and you have to try to figure out what that person is really trying to say. And so that's kind of second nature to me. More like trying to see the bigger truth behind the situation, and then deciding where I land based on that. I find also it's depends on where I am geographically, because where you are geographically affects the cultures. It affects the way people think and act. It affects the way different people interact with each other. And I've lived in different places, so I've recognized these differences. So I can't really give you a black and white answer, because there isn't one for me in my experience. It's a sliding scale is the best way I can think of. Say, I'm very adaptable. And I don't know if you've heard in the business world, they use the term early adapter. So like in new technology, when somebody wants to push new technology and get people to embrace something that, isn't just an upgrade from something that's already there, they call people who take on these new things and new ideas early adopters. And then everybody else sees, oh, they're doing it, they like it, so then they follow suit. And that's like the marketer's dream, an early adopter. So I'm kind of an early adopter in a lot of ways like that. It's just the way I'm wired. And so I'm much more receptive to hearing people out, listening respectfully to people who are different from me. That's just kind of how I'm wired. So if I get any kind of bad vibe at all, or anything, any red flags that are just kind of telling me there's something wrong with the picture here, then I'll kind of back it up and be a little less adaptable, and kind of put up those, we all have those natural instincts to protect ourselves. So that kind of comes into play.
No, so I'll eventually get to a question that incorporates the whole grayness of matters, because you're absolutely right. So that's coming up. But no, I liked how you personalized it and made your expertise in your career and profession play a role, and that had to at some point shape how you interacted in situations, and probably highly dictates that you don't adhere to one extreme or the other in your approach, or just walk into every situation firm on something. And what you do now, having to negotiate positive outcomes in your artistic ventures, all of that plays a significant role, being able to talk to people without being too stringent. So yeah, good stuff. I appreciate that. I'm gonna ask that you police your mute button. If you got something to say, just unmute. I'll see it if you but when you not talking, just so it doesn't get that reverb and echo and all that good stuff. But yeah, I like where you went with that very much in terms of cultures. I would have to agree with that 1,000%. Regionally within the United States, when you go outside the country, absolutely. North to south, south to north, there is something different in terms of how people move and interact in different spaces, in different places. I think that's 1,000% correct. That does influence how firm or how flexible you are, because there's something in certain environments that will not allow for firmness. It's just can't be. If you're in Jamaica and everybody's smiling and happy, even if it's not on the resort, or if you I think, let's see, one of the places that I enjoyed the most was recent trip to actually and Julia, you're going next. So Julia's hometown, Charleston. Got to hang out with some really cool people. Got to play golf in a beautiful place. And yeah, that environment was not by any means indicative of even getting mad about hitting a bad golf shot. I couldn't even be firm about my golf game. I had to be flexible because it was such an environment that brings out what you said, Mary, that cultural and also I guess the aesthetic. All of that plays a role. That was a good observation. I like that. I think that's an artist observation. I like that. Greg and Julia, what are you guys thoughts? I'm going to throw the second half at you guys, and then I'll come back and catch Mary and Lisa. But where are you firm and where are you flexible? And should we all stay learning throughout the course of our lives? I think that's an easy answer for everyone. So I saved it. You guys can start that part. But where are you firm and where are you flexible?
Well, as usual, we're very impressed with Lisa and Mary's comments. Um, Firmness around integrity, gosh, what better? And Mary, you know it when you see it, right? You know it when you see it. Um, it's interesting that what came to mind about um, this topic is time and timing. I'm strict about time, being on time, being respectful of other people's time. And yet, timing is an organic thing. I love the idea of sliding the scale, sliding the time thing to allow creative opportunity, to allow people to do what they're doing in a healthy, informative, um, inclusive, creative way. So timing can be flexible, but I want to be on time. So that's a little strange. And Felton, you mentioned the grayness of things. I'm a big believer in the middle way, not the polarities, not the opposites. Um, we get in trouble when we're on the fringes, on the outside of the fringes. We're friends when we can find that middle way. And so I like that comment that you made.
Great. Yeah, wonderful comments from Lisa and Mary. And yeah, fully agree with integrity. And Mary, agree with, staying open, but the way our interactions with someone determines how open we're able to be. Lisa, just a quick aside first, I want to say just the fact that you're planning a golf tournament means you're a learner. And we had a travel business, and we had different prices for single people and people that were sharing a room. Well, the single people could not understand. They thought we were discriminating, that they had to pay almost twice as much. And they really had a hard time understanding. They thought, well, we're taking up less space, da, da, da. But they have the whole cost of the room. So to counter that, we set up, but our business was long term. So we set up a buddy program so people could try to find roommates. So, I think when we're always looking for solutions and not closing ourselves off and saying, no, this is the way, but we have a mindset of what is the solution here? In fact, when I'm I can be a little more dogmatic, and Gregory will say, okay, what is the solution? What are we, don't complain. What is the solution? And that helps us, open up and learn more. Certainly our experience changing from catering to wealthy people, big parties, to serving the homeless has been a huge learning curve, and how to really try to step in someone's shoes when we haven't been in those shoes, and treat people respect, and it starts with respect. So, but still just being so careful and learning, paying attention to clues, like Mary said. How are people responding to us? What are we getting from them? And so this has been working with homeless and food insecure people has been a real learning for both of us. So
I want to just jump on right quick, Felton. Excuse me. You mentioned water and the quote from Portia. Just today, I was given this piece of paper from my Tai Chi teacher who teaches a small group of practitioners here. And it's this: the softest thing in the universe overcomes the hardest thing in the universe. That without substance can enter where there is no room. Hence, I know the value of non action, teaching without words, working without doing, and our understanding by very few. The softest thing in the universe is water.
Yeah, I think Bruce was onto something with that. That mindset, and I understood completely when I first heard it. Yeah, it does make sense to be non-conforming, because you never know what's around the corner, and you can't just be uh, firm on in every situation. So you have to acknowledge that need for that softness that you're referencing. So I won't take for granted that you guys are going to say, yeah, we should all stay learning throughout the course of our lives. Everybody in agreement, get 2 thumbs up. I wanted to say, Julia, I like that and I think you knew this was the moment of being flexible when you were sharing it, but it was again very practical. Uh, as Lisa spent time talking to this gentleman, you made it understood why things were set a certain way, but you didn't just say that's that. If you're by yourself, you said, "Hey, buddy system, let's do that." So there's always a little, as you were saying, Greg encourages you. What's the solution? There's always a little bit more we can unpack there. And Greg, you said something about time. This morning, man, I had a good example of not necessarily the on time factor, but just being in a space or place at the right time, or in a moment where it becomes more and you observe. And it was mentioned because the gentleman who we had this meeting that we do on Thursdays, and it was over. So me and one of the other guys were going down to have some breakfast downtown Greensboro, and we were sitting outside on the corner having our breakfast. And another guy who was just at that meeting, who said he had to go, he came down and he saw we were still there, and he said, "Hey, wait a minute, I'm gonna come over there and join you guys." So he came, and we had another wonderful conversation, and he got to pick up on some knowledge that was something he didn't know he would get from the interaction with the other gentleman I was with. And he was so appreciative. And he mentioned kind of what you're saying, Greg. And he's like, "Look at how this works. If I had just kept going and went to where I had to go, we wouldn't have got to share this time." I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I'm glad I stopped. I'm glad I came over." And he ended up buying his breakfast. So that was a wonderful thing. But yeah, so to continue, we'll get that black or white and gray question out of the way, because I think it only makes sense to bring it up since it's already shown itself. So Mary, I'll come to you first. If you can. I don't think you will be able to, but we'll see. And maybe in your former life before you got to this place that you are now. Give me an example of when black and white becomes gray to you. I think you're saying it's always gray, but do you have any examples of really when that takes place? And you guys be thinking about this question, because I know I bring questions up that you have to think about. So think about it.
Are you asking when at an age, or what do you mean by when?
However you choose to answer it is fine, as long as you give us the full context and understanding. But me formulating the question was more so a time when you were thinking something was just black or white. It was just this or that. It was just it was either this way or that way. And then you come to a realization that there's some gray in there that you need to acknowledge. That makes sense?
Probably, again, I would say probably going back to a lot of the experiences that I had working in healthcare, both with medical patients and with later with psych patients. People end up revealing to you some of their most intimate stories. And when people are vulnerable, they will really speak from their heart and really tell you the real deal and everything that went down. So, you know, before someone comes into the hospital, you just get a name and age and maybe a diagnosis or tentative diagnosis. But then you hear this, you know, if you're not careful, you can form some opinions about some of that before you ever meet the person, the human being, instead of that name on the list. And so it's very easy to pass judgment without getting to know the human being behind the story. And sometimes people will come into, for example, a psychiatric unit because they've done something pretty bad. And they're in a lot of distress and they'd rather end their life than try to deal with what they've done. And it's really easy to judge them. And there are definitely some situations where if I just looked at that little tiny bit of information and didn't meet that person and hear their whole story and get some context into the whole thing, then I, you know, and I experienced it myself. When you're in a hurry and you're really fast and there's one admission coming in after another and you just see that little piece of information, it's like a label being put on someone. And I hate labels being put on people because that's what it does. It just like applies a sticker to somebody that doesn't necessarily fit. And so I think it was really a gift for me to get this opportunity to meet people at that deeper level and hear them out and hear these stories. And then you find yourself really hard pressed to continue to have any judgmental feelings towards people when you hear that bigger story of their background, of things they experienced as a child and adversity they experienced for any number of years, some pretty horrible things happening to people. And so, you know, they might not make the best decisions moving along that pathway, but you know, everybody deserves a chance to come back from it. So I had a lot of opportunities to see that, a lot of opportunities, and that taught me a lot.
Yeah, so I think observe, and we've talked about this many times in this space, and that's humanity. Understanding that if you spend time studying, observing, engaging in things that allow you to really connect with the human condition, yeah, that you find yourself understanding that there's a lot of gray.
Yeah.
So I like that you made it about people, because we have prejudices. We have that judgy thing that happens. You look at somebody and you think you can sum up their whole existence, and you can't. You have to actually spend time with the person, not with the paperwork, not with the hearsay, but actually with the individual. Close to your point, or the way that you described it, Mary, so many times growing up and even young adulthood, and I think it kind of goes away when you get older, but you meet people in a way that is gossipy. You meet them and somebody has something negative to say about them, and you know, you might like that person too. That might be your friend talking this negative stuff, but it's their perception of the person. So that black and whiteness of situations became more gray in terms of people. When you meet the person, you're like, nothing that they told me about you was true, or nothing that they said to describe you to me before we interacted is what I'm observing. So it's a slippery slope.
You know, along those lines, I would say probably the most surprising thing that I learned about people I didn't expect to learn about along the way. At one point, I worked in a treatment center where we worked with people with addictions. And a lot of people have a lot of preconceived notions about wealthy people, like really, really wealthy people that never have to work a day in their life. There's a lot of preconceived judgment about those kinds of people. And I had never known any of them personally because I don't come from a lot of money. And so my first encounter with these kinds of people was in a treatment center for addiction. And I was really shocked to meet these people who had this endless supply of money, but were absolutely, utterly miserable, self-loathing, disconnected from society because of this life they lived. And the psychiatrist I worked with at the time called it the poor little rich kid syndrome. And it's like, wow, I never thought about what an isolating experience that might be, to be that special kid that never wanted for anything, but yet was really living almost in a different world from everybody else, because they didn't have those experiences of what it's like to be everybody else. So that was an experience where I really had my own definite preconceived notions about what the extremely rich people's lifestyle might be like, and it's not what you see on Instagram.
Yeah.
When you get to meet these people and hear their actual misery,
Yeah.
then you realize, wow, you're just another human being. You happen to have a big wallet.
Yeah. I think if you look back in, and I'm always saying, look back history, blah, blah, blah. Y'all, but, rich people kill themselves too. I hate to be that blunt about it, but it's been the case forever. There's the human existence is filled with struggle, adversity, real or not, realized by the individual or not. It is a tough thing to do, to live, and no matter what we're supposed to be able to enjoy and just have the best of lifestyles, rich and famous, whatever. It's proven time and time again that there's no secret that lies in extreme wealth. I think a lot of people, a lot of poor people are extremely happy, if that's some kind of measure. Lisa, give me your take, if you have an example of when black and white became gray to you.
Um, so I'm gonna start with answering that first question again, because as you went around in the squares, I thought of where my
Okay, so
firm,
you're going back to the firm. Okay, cool. Yep, go
and
ahead.
then I'm gonna circle back and answer that gray, black and white question too. So I am firm on my commitment to motherhood, and I'm also flexible in my mothering. But I have become flexible in my mothering because I used to be so black and white. Through my rearing, through my child rearing, it was like, well, I'm the mother and whatever I say goes. I used to literally say to my children, this is not a democracy, it's a dictatorship, and I'm the dictator. And I had 5 of them, and I treated them all the exact same. And I didn't know better, but whatever. But because I didn't know better, it was just black and white. Oh, you feed your kids, you clothe your kids. And a couple of them I clothed the exact same way because it was easy. So my 2 younger sons, they were like 20 months apart, and they were roughly the same size. So they had the exact same outfits on most of their childhood because it was easier. So, but my commitment to my motherhood, being firm with that, I had to be open to the fact that, wait a minute, you had 5 individuals, and 4 of them had the exact same mom and dad, but they are just so different. I had to take steps back as I matured and acknowledge that I should have been treating them more individual, but I didn't. So I atoned for that, and asked for forgiveness for that. And I have been trying to be intentional moving forward in that commitment to motherhood and staying flexible in my mothering. So I mother them very differently. So I'm not. So even the 2 that are 20 months apart, one of them I can just really go hard at. So he came over today and he was like, "Oh man, this I don't know about being a dad like this." And I said, "That's the devil. That the devil is a liar. I rebuke that. You're going to be a great father." And so I can go in hard with him. And then the other one I have to be kind of gingerly with, because he'll take it more to heart, like I don't like him or something. So I had to get that gray area within that spectrum.
Yeah, good observations of your progress, and your realization that as I love that you say you're dealing with individuals because yeah, you got kids, they're totally, it's not. I don't care if you have identical twins; they're still, different. The inner workings are different. So yeah, I like that you acknowledge that, and I'm a big fan of
But
people. Go ahead.
that also goes to your other question that we're all in these squares about that lifelong learning. I mean, I could have been like a lot of parents I know who are like, well, I don't care, this is how it is, even at this stage. So because I just believe in continually consuming more and more knowledge and understanding. That's what is helpful also. So I appreciate that question, even though it was an easy one for all of us.
Yeah, and I'm actually saluting you for recognizing that there's a point of growth that that uptick that you can take as opposed to remaining stagnant while everybody around you might start to distance themselves, the relationships are not healthy, you have good moments, but for the large part there's a tediousness and a tightrope that's being walked. You can definitely get past a lot of that if you acknowledge that you're dealing with individual personalities and people as opposed to what I say go type mentality. So I salute your growth in that department. Greg and Julia, what are your thoughts on the gray? I know Greg has already kind of shared his. You guys jumped ahead, but I like when that happens. But what are you? Do you have an example of going from black and white and
Well,
noticing the gray?
I'm thinking that for many of us, it's when we just get older. We get older, we get wiser. When we're younger, we think we know, and so we draw conclusions pretty quickly. Um, and it's just through time. And in fact, we were with a group of young people, um, and the young people, rather than calling us old people, they called us wise. They were being politically correct. That was wonderful. Mary, I want to applaud also your thoughts, and I follow these thoughts about second chances. That idea of redemption and salvation and salvage is a powerful theme for me. I like to think about things like that. There, but by the grace of God, go I. Um, and I remember having a thought, probably around the age 35. I've been involved in group work for most of my adult life. I've been part of a community for almost 40 years. And just through that, being in a group or being in a community has a great way of softening the edges, of softening and rounding out the edges. And so I figured out being happy was more important than being right. And so, and Julia, now I want to brag on her in this lifelong learning. She's studying Spanish right now. In fact, I don't know her. I call her Miss Margarita um, because I've been replaced by this program.
Habla español. I don't say anything back because I'm not going to be able to respond. I passed it, but I can I salute you. That is a great brain exercise for people who have gotten past like 12,
It,
because after that point it becomes hard to recalibrate. That's
it, it,
awesome.
it does. And we started because we deliver food to this trailer park, and about 30% of them are Hispanic. And I thought, I need to be able to communicate, at least say hola and pan and pollo and carne and anyway, what we have available. So Duolingo, it's great. Um, it's a free app, and it's great fun.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Were you gonna say, Shalita? she, uh, she likes your nickname for Julia.
Oh yeah,
Were you gonna say something else, Julia?
um,
yeah, Margarita.
I just wanted to say, comment on what Mary said. First, I want to say, Lisa, at some point you do have to be the dictator. It's not a democracy. There is a point. And then, later on, but these parents that want to be their kids' friends all the way through, so I think you're on the right track. And then Mary really resonated with, people are not their actions. That's not who they really are. So we can all make a mistake and do something we've done things in our lives. Well, maybe not Gregory, but I've done things in my life, I know, that hopefully that doesn't define me. So I just had a great experience. We're getting our passports renewed, and we went to the post office. And the first time Gregory went, there's a Chinese lady, and she spoke real fast. We couldn't understand her. Gregory kept saying, "What did she say? What did she say?" And she was kind of real short and a little bit rude. And I did the worst thing. I had critical thoughts, and that's one thing we both work on, not being, no matter what somebody does, don't judge, don't be critical, because like Mary said, there's a reason. But today I had to go back and take my birth certificate, and I had the best conversation. I said, okay, we're going to find rapport. And I learned that, she had a pen pal. She was living in Beijing. She had a pen pal in London who corrected her letters, and she learned to write beautifully. She came to the United States, got married, and she got in a terrible accident. And this pen pal she lost a kidney and something else, and he donated things to. Anyway, it was like the best experience. So
and they hugged at the end.
And she's
in the post office.
In the post office, yeah. And she said, she wears a mask, a big, long mask, and she said, "I wear this mask so nobody can see how mad I am." And because she has these people that they come in, they hadn't done any of their paperwork, and
they don't read instructions.
They don't read instructions. She said these college kids don't even read the applications. And anyway, so not judging, not being critical, staying out of the black and white. So thank you, Felton.
Yeah. I love it. That's a great example. I think sometimes we contribute to the outcome we don't desire. And as you stated, when you had those moments you could have kept those feelings in your mind or in your heart of, this lady's just the biggest jerk in the world and don't want to deal with her. And you could have took that same energy back there when you had your second encounter, but you didn't. And because of that, you were able to find, some kind of human link, human moment to observe and get to know another person. I believe Greg mentioned it, better to be happy than right. So, you guys, I like to take some credit, just a piece, when you jump to things that are, in the pipeline of questions to a degree. So I'll just go ahead to that question that was alluding to that. Can you think of a time that being wrong was beneficial to you? So that is exact. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. It creates a possibility for something to be learned. And it can get to that happy place if you just own it and just be okay with it. And I'll tell a quick story. I feel like I've told this before, but it kind of it encompasses everything we're discussing. When I was early 20s, I was working at this print company, and I was the tall guy, and I was the tall, handsome guy at the job, who whatever, and I probably was there like 2 years, and another tall, handsome guy was hired, and I was like, who is this guy? He coming in here taking my spot. And, I'm being facetious, but that's who is this person? And you start to make up in your mind who they are, almost like reading that paperwork, Mary, of the patient before you have an interaction with them. And I was like, ended up talking, a lot of stuff in common. It's one of my best friends to this day, like 20 some years later. And you don't get that if you resign and are firm in the thoughts and ideas that you just create on your own, or that one time that somebody looks at you funny, or that one time that you have a bad experience with someone at the passport office or whatever. If you leave someone there, then you're doing yourself just as much a disservice. You should never be that stringently firm based on some interaction. So the question again, and I'll start with you, Greg and Julia, and make my way back around. Can you think of a time that being wrong was beneficial to you?
Gosh, that's a tough one, Felton. I'm not landing on just something right quick. I'm Julia.
Yeah, that is a tough one, and I know there's been so many times.
There's not been a shortage.
You just shared a beautiful one, Julia. You were totally wrong. Like, you had a bad moment with that lady, but you were wrong about who you thought she might be as a total person. That's pretty much what leads me to that question, along with what Greg said, and that's what made me tell that story about one of my closest friends. 20 some years. Yeah, you can be wrong about that first impression, or whatever you project upon them.
Felton, I'm not coming up with anything. I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate the honesty, man. What about you, Julia? You good?
I think I'm good.
You gave me the story. Okay. Mary, what about yourself, Mary?
You think of anything?
You gotta unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm a work in progress here. So I made a little note while you were talking, Felton, because you made something pop into my head that I hadn't been applying to it. What we've been talking about. There's a saying, condemnation prior to investigation. When some knee-jerk response, maybe you're tired or you're hungry or you're running behind schedule or something, but there'll be some reason why somebody irks you, and then that judgmental thing comes up. That's when I find it hits me is, if I'm like feeling rested and I'm not feeling any particular strong need in any way, I can wait in a long line. I'm okay with it, but it's when there's a kind of an urgent need and something annoying happens that I'm much more likely to have one of those judgmental thoughts. And so it made me think of that, condemnation prior to investigation, prior to hearing out all the story and the reason why, two people are clashing. So 2 or more people are clashing. And I had the most recent experience I can think of about this would be where I learned something. And I think when I learned something, when me being wrong turns out to be a good thing is when the outcome works itself out and I end up getting some value out of that experience. So I had a recent experience with my son who just turned 18. And, in the summertime in between, he didn't take classes this year. He did before, but this year he didn't. He worked on projects instead, his own projects. So I was like, okay, you can stay up late in the beginning of the summer and sleep in, and that's okay as long as you're getting your goals. You're achieving your goals. You're being productive. You're not being a slug. So a couple of weeks ago, we're getting, he just started school this week. So it was 2 weeks until the school year was starting. And I was like, okay, no more sleep, no more staying up late, no more sleeping in. You need to get yourself on a schedule for school so that you're not a mess the first week of school. So there's that dictatorship piece where you have to be the dictator. Sometimes when you're a parent, you just have to draw that line, toe the hard line. So I tell him this, and I'm expecting him to follow through. And he does not follow through. As a matter of fact, he stays up later. I get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Light's still on in his room. It's 3 a.m. So the next day I have what I am thinking is a conversation with him, but I'm actually already mad at him. And so I'm like, what are you doing? I just told you need to go to bed no later than midnight. Absolutely no later than midnight. You need to be up in the morning and you need to be productive. And he's like, yeah. And he's blowing me off. So, which makes me more mad. So then this happens for like 3 consecutive nights. And I'm livid by the 3rd day. Livid. And also I have to take him out to a certain appointment. And he's tired and he's crabby, which is making me crabby. And we're both escalating each other. We're in the car driving around. And finally, I just like confronted him and said, why are you not listening to me? You're being irresponsible. Like I just went into the judgment and the attack right away. You're not listening to me. You're being irresponsible. Why don't you get your act together? I don't understand this. Why are you being defiant? You've never been defiant like this before. What is going on? And I thought maybe he's gotten involved with something on the internet that I don't know about, because it can happen to kids. And so I'm starting to get really nervous. And the last thing in the world I ever expected him to finally say, because teenagers, they start to pull away and they want to have privacy. They don't want to tell you everything about their life. And I respect that. But if I'm feeling like he's getting into something he shouldn't be getting into, I'm going to be like, you tell me what's going on, So he told me. And what it was is that one of his friends that he sometimes plays games, online, you can play games with anybody from anywhere. So he sometimes plays games with someone from Canada. And his Canadian friend is trans. And she had been sexually assaulted leaving work on that Monday night. And she reached out to him. And he spent 3 consecutive nights talking to her for 3 hours because she didn't have another support system. And boy, did I feel like a complete butthead, realizing that, he was doing the right thing. I wish he would have told me, because then I wouldn't have given a crap about it. I would have been like, that's fantastic. You're supporting your trans friend. That's great. And so we totally shifted the conversation over to, okay, did she report with the police? Did she report it to her employer because it happened on company grounds? Who does she have as a support net? We went through all of the things that you should have been talking about instead of me attacking him thinking he was doing something wrong. So that was like a complete about face. And we ended up like really getting closer because this happened.
Yeah, that was an opportunity there. And that's a good story. I think you should, I don't know if there's points in something you're doing, and even if it's with your son or if with his blessing, that's a good story to tell. I can understand him probably not desiring to make it a bigger deal, but it's great that sounds like he's an awesome dude for being there for a friend.
I was so shocked, and I was so proud of him.
Yeah,
went from being mad at him to proud of him.
Yeah,
like wow, it was just an about face. Like I just had no idea, and it's just another lesson until you know the whole story.
Yeah. But I think there's some proof in that the time is well spent, because that by some extension is a measure of you and your input for him to be there for someone that I'm guessing he's probably never met, just being on with a video game, online video games. Yeah, gosh, boy, I'm getting old. I'm familiar, but I often still think of two people in the same space with joysticks and being able to elbow each other. Lisa, get the last comment in before I go around the space, and give me your final words on top of answering the question of can you think of a time when being wrong was beneficial to you?
Well, darn, Mary has just floored me because I got a 17-year-old in here and I deal with the same thing. So kudos to your child. And I can imagine that they probably were not able to talk to you yet. That person probably said, don't tell anybody. So double kudos to that child. For me, and I feel like I've been testifying about this for 2 straight weeks, because if you guys are familiar with the story of Jonah, not wanting to go to Nineveh after God told him to, because he didn't want to preach to those people, and ended up in the well for 3 days and still ended up in Nineveh, whatever. My issue was that I divorced someone 21 years ago, and his cousin had been inviting me to a prayer call 2 years ago. And because I didn't, I don't like the person I divorced, and I wanted to sever my ties with that whole family because I don't like him. I would go on and off of the prayer call, over 2 years. But I was just like, they are not roping me into this family. I just want to leave this whole family alone. And I just had a preconceived idea that I couldn't get benefit because of the hostility I still had in my heart in respect to that bad relationship. But this past March, I just said, you know what? Let me just commit to trying to incorporate this into this intense therapy that I'm doing. And I have been on that prayer call every day, Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 8:30 since March, with the exception of 4 days. And what I got from that prayer call, I've talked about this in these squares before, that I didn't have mother figures and some female guidance and things like that. I have developed a relationship with the first lady of that church where she has been giving me motherly wisdom, like real motherly wisdom, over a myriad of things that I never would have gotten. And I'm talking about before I even met her face to face. Like, I had developed a reverence and a respect for this woman just because I committed to putting in everything I had to this prayer call. And it's changed my whole life. But because I just had this wall up, like, I don't have nothing to do with that family, I could have saved myself 2 years of drama and trauma. But we live and we learn. But I was just wrong. And part of the spiritual testimony is that I didn't know what God had in store for me, like with that prayer call, because this woman has really mothered me. And I'm not even a member of that church. She's really mothered me in a level I couldn't have imagined. So I was just absolutely wrong, because, his ways are not our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. And I'm just thankful that I did finally just submit and get on that prayer call, because now I really have a mother I can say that I trust and love and respect. So, yes.
You gave me a thought of kind of amending we live and we learn to we live when we learn. I'd like that a little better, because I think we should be eternal seekers of knowledge and learning. I think I had one more question left, but I'm going to leave it there. I got plenty of work to do, and I'm sure everyone here can spend a couple of minutes or hours you got left before bedtime doing something else. But I so appreciate the time, guys. This is always awesome. Any last words before we get out of here? All hearts and minds content, as they say. Everybody good. Thank you all so much. Danya, great job. Greg, Julia, Mary, Lisa, thank you all so much for showing up and showing out. I appreciate you. And have a wonderful night. Y'all take care.